I'm just going to trust the timing there because I don't hear any intro music on my end, but I know it went out. How's everybody doing? Welcome to the regular Sunday afternoon edition of the Sunday Show. I'm here with Owen. Owen, how are you today?
Doing well. Yeah, just hanging out, making it. It's a lazy Sunday. I usually take Sundays off for much of it. So yeah, just been hanging out.
I'm doing superb, as in the superb owl.
Okay, wow.
Super Bowl. I'm told there's a special game on today, and so because of that, nobody's going to call in. And I said, you know what? I don't believe that. I think there are people out there for whom defending their religious beliefs is, in fact, more important than which of their preferred sports team God shines his bright face on today. So, if you think God favors your team over the other one and you'd like to defend that, this may not be the show for you unless you're going to, start by defending the existence of God and not just what your opinion about God is. But it is a show for which people to call in and engage in defenses of whatever they believe in. Why Owen and I are here to basically say, tell us what it is that you believe, why you believe it. Do you think that we should also believe it? And for those reasons, because it may be the case that you have a particular esoteric belief that none of the rest of us have any reason to think is real, or that is of no use. Like you believe there's a God, but he only cares about you and purple monkeys in a dishwasher. I really can't do much with ideas like that. Maybe you took a bong rip one day and decided, bruh, like all of the universe is just conscious and we're the way for the universe to know itself. And that should count as like, God. That's cool and all, but if you don't have any way to demonstrate it, it's just like your opinion.
We tend to hear that a lot. I've heard a lot of that, weirdly. People calling in and telling us all kinds of weird little esoteric things that seem to be like creative and novel, but they're really not.
And it's kind of fun. It's cool to speculate about what kind of things might be. But I mean, and that's how you end up with sci-fi and superhero movies and all that stuff. And, I like those. But when we're talking about what's believable, what people actually believe, what they think is justified, it's a little more difficult. And that's why I'm optimistic about our first caller, who's Christian is his name. Christian's calling from Georgia with reasons to believe in God. Hey, Christian, how are you?
I'm doing quite well. Can you hear me?
We can.
Awesome. Yeah, I mostly just wanted to, it's kind of a lazy Sunday for me too, admittedly, but I wanted to kind of just get your opinions. I know that you have said in the past many times that you're not convinced of God, and that's understandable, but I'm curious, at least from your experience, what have you heard from other people, who try to, because you speak to a lot of very smart theists and such, what arguments maybe did they give that while you were maybe not convinced by, you thought at least were hey, this is actually very compelling, or it's understandable why someone would believe this, rationally, you know what I mean?
Well, none really, because obviously I'd changed my mind. I don't know if you're
really
standing outside in the wind or whatever, but
I had my band on, sorry.
Things like, essentially first cause arguments, I understand why people understand them, but I also understand why they shouldn't. And so I there's a number of different versions of different arguments that people have given where it's like, oh, I can see why that would be compelling, but I can't help but spot this obvious flaw. And so if I've constantly been in a position where there's been no valid and sound argument that I accept, then by definition, there is no argument that is reasonable that warrants belief, at least as far as what I've been presented. But some are certainly better than others in the sense that the notion that why is there something rather than nothing. And the obvious answer of, well, there couldn't be a nothing, because as soon as it is something. So in some form or another, the notion of there being a nothing is already just, it's as paradoxical as a liar's paradox, from an epistemological standpoint. And so when I hear people talk about, oh, well, something must have made it. Okay. There needs to be some explanation for why there exists the current state of the universe, but there may be things that are beyond our ability to investigate. And so how did you determine that the best explanation for the origin of the universe is a thinking being, agent God who cares
Sure.
about this and has inspired those things?
Sure. That's interesting. To say in like I guess like the extent of your like career, like zero. That's actually I didn't expect that. That's actually pretty interesting. Like, I know you're with another speaker or co-host, but I'm curious to hear what they would have to say. Like, can you?
Yeah.
I think Owen. Like, yeah. What do you think?
I think that the most convincing to me throughout my history as a Christian and then, questioning and then an atheist, most convincing has been probably the first cause. And the reason that was so convincing is only because I live in this culture where Christianity is assumed. And I grew up kind of just understanding facts of the world around me as being based around a God. So when you exist in that environment your entire life, it only makes sense that, that something was there and something created you. Now, eventually you learn about evolution and you learn that there's like literally no reason to accept any of this. And I got to the point where I realized that it's no different than claiming that like a pink dragon exists and that the pink dragon created us or whatever. That my whole reason for believing all of this stuff was solely because of the culture that I grew up in. There is no other reason for it. And when I got to that point, I just realized that, I could throw it all out. So I guess that one is probably the one that like kept me in for as long as I was. But once I kind of disconnected myself from the culture, realized that all my experiences were based on the culture I lived in, it kind of fell apart.
And you would also, I guess, would you second Matt's sentiment in saying that as you see it now, like there is like zero, like no reason to believe in God? Like, would you say that today? Like, I guess in your understanding of like the world and how arguments usually run and stuff like that. Like, would you go so far as to say there are zero arguments that are like compelling, at least?
I don't know about Matt, but I would say no. There are none. Certainly none that I've seen. I am open to listening. I'm opening to finding these arguments, but there simply aren't any. And when you reframe the issue into a completely different scenario, try to create an analogy where you're separated from your cultural understandings, you start to realize how absolutely absurd it is to make the claims that are being made. And that I suppose that it's, there are some things that could prove that there's a God, but they're so far-fetched. It's like finding a rabbit in the Precambrian era of the fossil record, for example. Like, it's just not going to happen. If it does, we can reevaluate when we get there. But I'm literally betting my life that this isn't factual, that this isn't going to happen. So I would say no, there aren't any good reasons to believe this. Do you have anything to say about it, Matt?
No, I'm with you. I'm if you called in to talk about, reasons to believe in God, if you're a God believer, what reason have we missed? What non-fallacious argument supported by evidence is out there that we're missing?
Well, I was going to ask another question, but do you want me to do that, or do you want me to, I guess, go down this line for you?
Well, we've answered the last couple of questions. I mean, what was your next question?
Yeah, my next question was just like, kind of conversely, like, would you say that there's evidence for atheism and like stuff that's compelling to you in that like
That's
realm?
fundamental that's a fundamental misunderstanding. There is no atheism is not an affirmative position that can be or would be supported by evidence. If you have an unfalsifiable God, your atheism with respect to that cannot be demonstrated in the affirmative position. Theism is accepting the proposition some God exists. Atheism is rejecting the proposition some God exists, but that means you do not believe it. That doesn't mean you're asserting that it is false. It's not up to atheism to prove there isn't a God. It's up to the various God claims to prove it. And until they have, no belief is warranted.
And
Interesting.
another thing on that point,
Okay, yeah.
a lot of the
Go ahead.
time, Christian, like young Earth creationists, try to kind of warp the situation around and make atheists defend evolution when it doesn't matter if evolution is factual or accurate or anything. It doesn't address Christianity. Yeah, I know. I start using that. It doesn't address whether Christianity is accurate. So I tend not to like get caught up in that. I'm just saying, as an atheist, I'm asking, is there a reason to believe it? And thus far, nobody has given any reason that I can find that's reasonable at all.
Okay. A comment I would, and I'll answer your question, but like a comment that I would make to Matt's point is, it is an interesting way of thinking about it. Like in the literature, like you have people like Paul Draper or, you know, Gray Mackey, like they try to prove that there is no God, right? Like, would you say that they're like in the wrong for like doing that? Or
there's no problem at all with attempting to falsify falsifiable gods, but if they're trying to falsify unfalsifiable gods, then they are engaged in a fruitless effort.
All right,
I mean, if you,
That's not how logic works.
I don't get how it's interesting. If you've claimed to falsify
No, I mean,
which is unfalsifiable, go ahead.
No, I think I'm on a delay, but I was just saying. No, the reason why I say it's interesting is because, as far as I'm aware, like in terms of like the literature, I'm not like a whiz or anything, but atheists in the literature normally define themselves as claiming that there is no God, actually, and they try to justify that. So
Never heard that.
Thinking like when I ask you that question, that's okay. But I say it to say, just to finish my thought, I say to say that atheists like Paul Draper and so on and so forth, like they may do like logical problem of evil or something like that, because they're trying to justify a claim that they believe is real, namely that there are no gods. So when I asked like, is there evidence for atheism, I was thinking, have you been compelled by any of those types of arguments where atheists in the literature are actually trying to like justify their claims, like
theism, right? You're asking about like the anti-theism position. Can you defend it? And personally, I don't try to defend the anti-theism position because I haven't seen any compelling reason to accept that logically. But I know that some people do defend the anti-theist position. Do you defend it, Matt, or do you have a defense for it?
I can and have. It's unnecessary. It's a shifting of the burden of proof. Why would you ever do it? Until there's such, as long as the case of here's the reason to believe in a God is unwarranted, you know, I don't need to run around and try to prove there's not a Bigfoot or not a Loch Ness monster, that there's not fairies, that there's not goblins. that there's not a supernatural realm. If in fact what they're advocating is untestable and unfalsifiable, it's a futile exercise to even try to falsify it. And if they have a falsifiable God and you can knock it down, cool. Haven't we done that over and over again? I don't see that the positive defense of a strong atheist position is never going to knock down an unfalsifiable God. It can only knock down a falsifiable God. And I don't know that anybody's presented a falsifiable, testable God. And so once again, we're back to what reason have we missed to believe that a God exists?
What reason do we have? Just making sure that I understand your point. Like, what reason do we have to believe
I'm
that there's a
asking you
God
what reason,
that you've missed
what
before?
reason do you, asking you, what reason do you think that we have missed that warrants believing in a God?
That's kind of tough because I don't know how much you have been exposed to.
Well,
and
let's
that's kind
just
of why I
assume
wanted to
that
ask,
since I'm 55, I walked down the aisle at the age of 5 and accepted Christ into my heart, was active in the church till I was 30, and that I'm one of the foremost debaters on the planet who've done thousands of shows and taken thousands of calls and sat down with the top apologists and debaters on the planet, as well as just the average Joe, that I've been exposed to quite a bit. So without messing around about you don't know what's in my head, true, I'm asking you to speculate about what it is, what convinces you that there's a God that should also convince us. There, that's a better way to phrase it.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. That is a better clarification. Well, several things convince me. It's not just one thing, but one thing that I do tend to think about at times is ideas about like the nature of like consciousness and like how like what maybe the consequences of reducing that just to like a
I'm
material
sorry,
state of
Christian.
affairs would
One of
be.
the things is that I'm not looking for ideas about thoughts about like nature of like consciousness. I'm looking for arguments supported by evidence that compel the acceptance that a God exists.
Do you want me to like make a syllogism or something, or like I thought I was just going to explain like where I'm coming from. So
I'm looking for
like, do you want
reasons to
like do you
believe.
want a deductive argument or something?
I'm looking for reasons to believe in a God. When I ask someone, what reason do you have for believing in God? And then you say, well, there are many of them. One of the things is that I like to think about ideas like nature of none of that is an argument. None of that is evidence. None of it is in any way compelling belief.
It sounds to me
Okay,
like
so yeah, I get
down.
what you mean. I can posit something that I was thinking of, and it is an argument. It's not just I'm thinking about this. But I've been getting into like Dr. Luke Barnes's like fine-tuning, like Bayesian fine-tuning argument.
Okay.
Have you heard of that?
Yeah. Fine-tuning, yep.
Okay.
Is there a unique version of
it's a nice. Well, I appreciate it in the fact that it's a Bayesian argument, so it's not like it's not so much trying to prove something like in the deductive sense, but how I remember it is.
There's a problem, though. There's a Christian, it won't matter.
Sure.
You can't do Bayesian analysis on a universe when you've got one universe.
Yeah, you can. Why not?
Because you don't have any priors. You don't have anything to compare it to. You can't talk about the likelihood of this universe unless you have other universes as other data points. Bayesian analysis doesn't work for things with a single instance occurrence. Bayesian analysis is great for determining which medications are working at which rate, because you're going to have multiple data points and multiple priors, and a way to determine what a statistical likely probability is. But in a Bayesian analysis of the universe, we have exactly one. We have nothing to compare it to. We don't know how likely it is or isn't. And so you can't say, ooh, if we adjust these things here, because you can tweak those dials in any way, which is why I've debated Bayesians like Junta, who tried to make a Bayesian analysis for the existence of God. And yet I'm also friends with an anti-Christian who uses Bayesian analysis to show that Jesus Christ almost certainly didn't exist. When you have a proposition that is unique and not subject to revised trials and things like that, the notion of doing a Bayesian analysis it ultimately fails. You can't say, oh, this is more likely than that if there's no that.
Yeah, I would push back on that, because the point is that you're comparing theories. Like you can make Bayesian analyses about like history, for example, but we don't have like parallel universes to like see different permutations and how history could have played out.
You're comparing similar events, and similar events occur in different people's lives at various points in history. Similar things like that get repeated. The origin of the universe doesn't have similar events. So you don't need something that's absolutely identical. You don't need to be able to sit in the multiverse and explore all the different universes to do it. You can, in fact, engage in some theoretical stuff, but you do not know what you can put in there. But to say, oh, you can look at historical events, yes, you can, if they're not unique.
I think that's kind of missing my point. What I was saying was, like, the point of Bayesian analysis is to compare different theories with the background knowledge and your priors. So it's like, I understand
what it is.
I don't have access to another universe.
Many times.
If I may finish my thought, please.
But
I don't have another universe, but
you can't actually. I don't need you to repeat your thought. I don't need you to repeat the error that I've already corrected. What else have you got?
Yeah, I was saying that you were missing my point, because you focus
I'm
more
not
on, like,
missing your point. I'm pointing out what's wrong with you. Any attempt to do a Bayesian analysis on the origin of the universe fails. What else have you got?
Yeah, I would just reject that. I was going to explain
then
why,
I will just reject you. Now what do? We've both rejected this. What else have you got means what else have you got?
I would like to talk about Luke Barnes's argument. I think it's actually pretty interesting.
Okay, well then have them book a debate and contact me, because I've already rebutted this. What else have you got?
If you've rebutted it, could you point me in that direction? Because I actually would be interested.
I already just did it in this call, and I addressed it in debate reviews against Blake Junta, but I'm not here to do all your homework for you. What else have you got?
Is there something specific that you're asking for?
Oh my God, like, Christian!
When you say what else have you got?
What fucking reason do you have to believe other than the one you fucking given? Why is this so fucking difficult?
God bless you. Yeah. I'm just confused at your question. That's all.
Okay, I'm going to mute you, because evidently my questions are too confusing. I asked you what reasons you had for believing that a God, reasons that we should accept as well. You presented, as one of many, a Bayesian analysis, and I pointed out why that would not be acceptable to me. And I asked, what else have you got? So I'm asking you, Christian, what other reason do you have for believing in a God that you think we should accept? You don't need to poll me for a list of anything else that might get rebutted or shut down, because I've already told you I found none of them compelling or convincing or useful. But when I ask what else have you got, if you don't have anything else, you should just say that. But if you're going to do this little tap dance of trying to quiz me, that's going to fail. So what else have you got? What other reason have you got that you think should convince us that a God exists?
Am I muted?
No.
Did I just ask you a fucking question? You don't have to ask if you're unmuted.
Well, I just don't know. I don't want to speak to the void. You know, you know what I mean? I don't want to like talk and you can't hear me. So it's like, I just want to make sure.
Okay.
You can't hear me though, apparently.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to try to work with what I've got, because that is a very open-ended question, but it's tough, admittedly, because I think that Dr. Luke Barnes' argument is fine, and I was going to explain why I disagree with you.
Goodbye, Christian. Goodbye, Christian. It's clear that you have nothing else. Fuck you.
Have a wonderful day. God bless you.
Fuck you.
God bless you.
Your God
God
can't
bless
do
you.
anything. Your God can't even give you a way to interact in any reasonable sense. Your God can't give you a second reason when your first fails. Fuck you. I don't need
Have a
God
blessed day,
blessing.
Matt. Have a wonderful
Go
day.
fuck yourself.
Bye.
Go fuck yourself. There you go, Christian. Is that what you want? Have a blessed day. Thank you for showing how you put on those blinders fully so that you are incapable of actually engaging in any sort of deconstruction of what you actually believe. You cannot do. So Bayesian analysis requires a knowledge of priors and not just a single thing. You can use it in history because somebody becomes king or president multiple times and you can compare those things. Somebody gets sick or ill numbers of different times and you can compare those things. Not that they're identical, but because they're close, because they're similar. You have no similar comparisons of universes to compare to. So the best you can do is create hypothetical models, mathematical models of what you think a universe can be based on, what you think the likelihood of those universes are. The problem is that all of those are based on assumptions in this one that have never been borne out or demonstrated. So you don't actually have priors. So every Bayesian analysis argument of the origin of the universe breaks down to, I think this is really unlikely. I think this is really unlikely. And you are just tweaking the dials. And you can tweak those dials to where they conclude, no reason to think that there's a divine agent involved. And you can tweak those dials until, yep, this seems unlikely without the help of a divine agent. But even if it seems unlikely without the guidance of a thinking agent, that doesn't in any way demonstrate that that is in fact the right answer. Not just that your current math suggests it's a higher probability than not, when you have no way of determining which of two possible explanations is more probable, and you don't even have a way of showing that both potential explanations are possible. Of course, if you got dealt a royal flush in spades, it's more probable that in any given occurrence of that it was intended by someone, if in fact you have good reason to believe there's someone capable of intending it and doing it. But if you took every straight flush hand that's ever been dealt and suggested they are all more probable under cheating than under not cheating, you're correct for the single occurrence. You are not correct for the trend, because we know at what rate those things occur by chance. And so you can see when they are occurring at rates that violate chance. You can't do that sort of thing with the universe. You can't do that with God. And this is why I'm going to shut that stuff down, because you can talk about how much you love Dr. Luke Barnes and I love his thing. Oh, cool. Have him call in and defend it. Have him book a debate. I don't need to do debates by proxy, especially with models that cannot demonstrate what the people are trying to demonstrate from it. Have a blessed day. When you respond to me with your version of fuck off, that's what you get back. And to me, blessed day is exactly what that is.
Or
I don't know
bless
if
your heart.
you're mute. Oh, there you go. I wasn't
Yeah, I
sure
was
Owen
gonna
was
say,
muted.
no, I'm here. I was gonna say, I guess this is kind of like, I guess it's a little bit like the Drake equation, where you have to plug in a bunch of variables. Do you think that's right, or is there like is it similar Bayesian analysis of fine tuning? It seems to me that it's kind of like, what are the chances that we'd be in this position? You're trying to calculate that on statistical probability, but it breaks down for the
It's a
same
bit
reason that the Drake equation can't give us insight into the reality of it, right?
a bit. I mean, the Drake equation isn't well. I would imagine there would be a version of a Bayesian analysis version of the Drake equation somewhere that somebody's done, and it's really the Drake equation. I think it's a great attempt at using kind of Bayesian analysis out there, and it's, hey, we know, or we can guess and approximate how many planets are going to reach this point and this point and this point and this point, and combine all those things. But all it can tell you is roughly how likely it is that there's life out there beyond Earth, including intelligent life. And if in fact there may be intelligent life beyond Earth, and there may not be intelligent life beyond Earth. Both of those situations are possible, but all the Drake equations try and do is tell you how likely it is that, to lean one way or the other. And it suggests that the building blocks of life are rampant in the galaxy, and that it would be incredibly unusual for there not to be some sort of intelligent life somewhere in the universe. But also, however likely it is in the universe, somebody also has to be the first. Maybe we're the first, maybe we're not. And so all you can say is my probabilistic analysis of the likelihood of life in the Earth shows that it should permeate the universe at this rate, given what we know. And that's kind of what the Drake equation is doing. The likelihood that we would find any other planet like that is still, vanishingly small.
So with the Drake equation, it sounds like we have way more variables to work with, and much more solid ground when going into Bayesian analysis of fine tuning. We're starting with like basically nothing, for the most part. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, in the sense that there's a lot of factors that we can know a lot about for something like the Drake equation, and yet there's still plenty of unknowns. For something like, what does it take to form a universe? It's the question itself may already be flawed. The universe may have always existed in some form or another, in much the same way that somebody wants to posit that a God always existed in some form or another. And it's just, hey, did time begin here? Is this just a local presentation? Is it a cyclical thing? Is it something generated by a multiverse? And so we can keep positing all these things without even knowing whether or not they're actually possible. Not philosophically possible in the sense that, well, you can't prove they're not, but empirically possible in the sense of this is something that could exist in reality.
And we would have to start from a universe level too, because there are like a billion examples of planets that have Earth-like conditions. So we're talking about like a universe-wide thing. We're not talking about like an Earth fine-tuning thing, right?
Yeah. And it's what's more interesting is that we know that because the way our universe is expanding, we know how it's going to die. And we know that there's going to come a time in the future where all of the information that we process from like the cosmic microwave background radiation and all of that tells us about the origin of the universe as best it can. It doesn't give us a complete story. But there's going to come a time in the future where people who are potentially alive don't have access to that information at all. Where when they look up at the night sky, no matter what technology they develop, they will no longer be able to get the information to reach the right answer. And what's worse is we say the right answer mainly because that's our current best answer. And without being able to go, we know we haven't expanded, past this little window to see into the history of the world. But we know we will. But we're also blocked prior to the Planck time from exploring it.
Right. So basically we have like no variables to work with just about to analyze the Bayesian analysis of fine tuning.
Yeah. And the other thing is, let's assume that the universe had the hallmark, like we were able to compare universes. Let's say we had 10 good universe models that we could compare. And we had hypothetical models that were created by an intelligence and hypothetical models that were not, that occurred through some naturalistic process. And let's say that we had the best case scenario, which is that after analyzing those, we can see markers that strongly indicate intelligent design. Even if you were to look at our universe and see markers that strongly indicated intelligent design compared to what we know about the others, that would also not confirm that our universe was in fact designed. And it wouldn't tell us anything at all about the designer or their origins or their motivations, why they did it, what they care about, whether or not they inspired a book, whether or not they took human form. All of these things that people glom onto it go way beyond and I'm not saying that the last caller was trying to do this, but they go way beyond hey, we need something to explain the state of affairs. They then go to, well, if it's reasonable, it's what I call compound inference instead of compound interest, where you make an inference and it ends up being kind of like a slippery slope type thing, but you make an inference and it's probably okay. And it's a good, I mean, science works on inference, and you add a couple more of those and you add a couple more on those. And when you find out that you've stacked up 23 inferences that are based on a couple sloppy ones in the early foundation, now all of a sudden your compounded inference is a tower that's getting ready to fall over. You've built your house on sand to go down the Bible route.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sweet. Well, we got some more theist callers. Some of them calling in with questions for us. Some of them are calling in with answers for us. But Sura is calling from India. He's a theist that wants to talk about the global atheist population. So welcome, Sura. You're on with Owen and Matt.
I want to ask why.
Yeah, there you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I want to ask why atheist population is only 16% instead of 100%.
You say you're wondering why the global population is 15%, you say?
Yes, atheist population.
Well, there are all kinds of reasons for that. I think science shows that we evolved to expect that there's something in the bushes watching us. And a billion different religions of all sorts have sprung up throughout history. That's also partly because it's been used as a control mechanism throughout history. But I guess you could say that, as far as I can tell, science shows that we have a predisposition to think something is watching us, and society just ran away with that kind of that predisposition. But I'm speculating here. It doesn't really establish any. What?
Yeah, there's some other things that take place. Like once religions establish a hold on an area, they tend to make it so that identifying with a different religion is not permitted or not acceptable. And so that discourages people from being, it's why religions tend to conglomerate. Like if you have an area that's predominantly Christian, it's going to likely stay predominantly Christian. And an area that's predominantly Muslim is likely to stay predominantly Muslim.
Does that answer the question?
Why do you think that we always feel that someone is watching us, or why do you think?
Well, we came from creatures that were predators and prey at different times. So we're sitting there and we hear a rustle in the bushes. We can recognize that as a potential predator and run and survive. If it was the wind, it doesn't matter. Nothing was lost. We lost a little bit of energy, but we're still alive. If we incorrectly assess that it was not a predator, but it really was, we're dead. So we evolved with a predisposition to assume that there was something in the bushes. False positive versus false negative.
We are the successful predator.
Say again.
But we are the successful predator, right? Then why should we be scared of others?
Why should we be scared of it? Well, I mean, we see evidence of this in older primates, we see evidence of this in other more distant primates. So we know that we've had this predisposition for a very long time. But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. Like that doesn't. It seems like you have a kind of a misunderstanding of how evolution works. If you think that we don't need that anymore, so it's just gone away. I mean, we have vestigial things on us all over the place, the appendix, the tailbone, and stuff like that. This is just kind of a vestigial, I guess, psychological evolution, we could say.
But even if evolution, by means of natural selection, tended to favor intelligence and accuracy, that doesn't mean that it would favor perfect thinking, because sometimes you really only need good enough thinking in order to be able to pass on your genes, and you need to avoid the very, very worst aspects of thinking. So religious ideas have provided benefits for cultures and exploited benefits for cultures, and they've also, in many cases, not been significantly significantly negative enough to warrant shutting it down. And so, to the extent that we are becoming better thinkers, it does not mean that we are in any way a perfect thinker, and it doesn't mean that that was like an intended goal. Evolution, to the extent that it doesn't have goals, but if it's working with natural selection, it only needs us to be smart enough to have a good enough chance of passing on our genes.
Why do you think man created religion?
Why do we think man invented religion? Is that what you said?
Yes.
It's a little bit hard to understand. Why do we think man invented religion? I mean, like I said, we have this predisposition to think that there's something there in the bushes, and I think it was a useful control tactic early on. So it got popular, and it spread from there. It just kept, being used by the next generation of leaders. It's like racism. It's a learned quality. Racism is fully learned. You aren't born being racist. In the same way, you're not born believing in like Yahweh or whatever. Like these things are largely learned with a predisposition toward thinking something's watching, and that's it.
Okay, why do you think people like you are not questioning religion? Why other theists are not questioning religion, like you, both of you?
Why isn't everybody questioning religion? Is that what you said? Because they
Yes.
kind of, this is life. I mean, I didn't question religion for decades. I continued believing this until I was like in my mid-20s, I think, and I was like really far in my religion. Why would you question it if it's, working for you? People don't like change. They just like living their lives. Are you
So in
religious?
future, do you think atheist population will rise?
I'm sorry, say it again.
In the future, do we think the atheist population will rise? Yes, I think that the number of
Yes.
atheists will continue to rise. The trend is towards a more secular world, we know, but it vacillates.
I would venture
It
to
is
guess
possible.
it's with fascism.
I, I thought few research centers told Muslim population will rise.
Oh, do we think the Muslim population will rise? I mean, with birth rates,
That's what-
certainly, but with birth rates, it'll certainly rise. Yeah. But overall, as Matt said, I think we are moving toward a more secular world. We have been for a while now. More freedom generally, but as fascism kind of takes root in different countries, smaller ones even, strict top-down control, religion is more heavily enforced because, again, it's a good control mechanism, has been for a long time.
Sir, why do you believe in a God?
Because there is so much power in it. There is so much force and divine. I feel there is so much force and power behind religion. which is making the entire population, majority of the population, to be theist.
But there was a lot of force and power behind like the Nazi movement, but we don't want anything to do with that. It's obviously not correct or real. And you reject that. Why is it that it seems like you're not giving us a reason to believe in God. You're just giving us a reason why it exists in society, I guess.
Yes, actually, the powerful leaders like Modi, Trump, Putin, they are all believe in God. I don't understand why the top politicians, they firmly believe in God.
So
You don't
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they believe in God or how you know they believe in God or why it matters that they believe in God. But are you suggesting that you don't care if it's true, you just care if it's useful? Or do you think it's true because it's useful or useful because it's true?
It is true that there is some force which is making people not to question the critical questions. There is some
There's a
force
force
which is
that I'm
making
trying to
people
hang on. I'm trying to
not
understand. I'm trying to understand. You say there's a force that makes people like Putin or something?
Putin, Trump, Modi,
There's a
not
force
to
that
question religion.
makes them not question religion.
Yes,
There is a force that makes those world leaders not question religion. I'm not sure how we know that they
Well,
don't.
in Trump's case, I think the force is stupidity because Trump's an idiot.
Yeah.
The other ones,
Modi,
I'm not
Narendra Modi,
convinced.
Putin.
I'm not convinced that the rest of them. I don't know what they believe, and I don't know why they believe it. Maybe they don't believe in a religion at all, but they just exploit the people who do.
Is that a possibility, you think?
So, so they take religion as a tool to get votes.
It's something that works, you say?
Oh, okay, but uh, unless there is strong, so we, so you consider all the world leaders to be stupid.
No, I don't consider them to be stupid. I have no idea if they really believe this, and I have no idea what their reasons are for believing it. I don't think religious people are stupid at all. I was religious. I
Now,
wasn't.
I wasn't, my IQ didn't go up, none of that stuff. Trump is an idiot. That's completely separate from whether or not I think all leaders are idiots or whether or not I think all religious people are idiots. I don't think all religious leaders, all people, all religious people, I don't think any of them are all idiots. But I think Trump is definitely an idiot. That's completely separate.
Okay, so why those other believers are not uh, asking critical questions about religion? Why normal
Why
people are not
you
asking critical?
you asking why is it that believers
Hello?
aren't asking critical questions? Is that right?
Yes, about religion.
They just don't need to. Their lives are functioning and people don't like change. That would be my guess, but I guess we'd have to go on a case by case basis.
So I think that there is some force which is satisfying them.
You think
Okay.
there's a force?
How would you prove that? How would you prove that there's a force doing this rather than just they enjoy it?
Mm, because they don't have, they don't like the non-existence of God.
Because
So
they
what
don't
is making them?
So You think that
They
there's
don't like the
people,
non-existence of God.
It's a long
okay,
delay.
yeah, it's a difficult delay. What we're really asking here is, you think there's a force that keeps them believing? Is that force God, or is that force fear, or is it something else? I'm just trying to understand.
It is it is something like God, an otherworld being, alien, or maybe God.
Could be God then, you say?
How do you tell?
Yes, the God or alien,
Or aliens?
The gods are aliens.
because
How do you know that? How do you know that?
because I believe that my IQ is same as their IQ.
Okay. We thank you
Okay.
for your call. Have fun. Yeah, I don't know what to do with that. I tried every way, because if you think, oh, I was trying to understand, because if you say, hey, I think there's a force that keeps people from questioning religion. Okay. Is that force a God that doesn't want people to question religion? Or is that force like an internal psychological fear? Or, do you mean it in a metaphorical sense of, like, there's a force that makes me want sugar. I'm a diabetic. I'm not supposed to have it. There's a force that makes me desire sugar. It's not an external force. It's not a magical force. It is something my brain does in addition to my normal thoughts. If you mean that there's a force that keeps people from questioning religion, and it's like that, yeah. And in some cases, it is a lack of curiosity. In some cases, it is fear of the answer. And in some cases, it's fear of finding out that the answer is, I don't know. It's just a fear of not knowing. But if you think that it's because there's a force that is God that's maintaining people's religious belief, I just want to know how you demonstrate it. And if you say that you demonstrate it because your IQ is the same as somebody else, thanks for letting me know that we wasted a bunch of our time.
Could be God or aliens, you see.
We've got a few theist calls I want to get to, but I also want to get to one of this atheist calls real quick. So is it Arn or Arnie has been on the phone for a while now from Florida?
Yes, hello, Matt. I'm afraid I dropped the call and I decided to call back in. Yes, it's Arne.
Arne. I apologize. I can't do my R's right at the moment, but you said our side commits certain unforced errors. I think that's going to come as a surprise to nobody, but what is it you want to
Right.
mention on that?
At the risk of boring everyone, this is going to be a bit academic and perhaps pedantic. It's also been brought up by our favorite anti-theist in the past. But this realization has never really been implemented then when we go on to our discourse and our debate. Number one would be the term atheist. If anything we've learned from the trans revolution is that we shouldn't be calling people or accept being called things that we don't identify with. I think Sam Harris once pointed out the absurdity of the term atheist because it suggests that we are the
So
go ahead.
Stop. Are you calling in to suggest that there's some problem with using the term atheist because it defines yourself in terms of theism?
No, my suggestion is that we are have that term imposed on us by the theist industrial complex, which is the dominant.
Arne,
used to be the dominant.
I don't have that label imposed on me. I use it voluntarily. Are you suggesting that I shouldn't?
Well, I'm suggesting that we should consider discussing it. I mean, do you understand my point that it's an absurd term to define ourselves in proportion to or in comparison to
No. I not only don't find that to be the case, I find that to be a particularly stupid objection. What were the people who were opposed to slavery called?
abolitionists, I believe they were called.
Yes.
Were they
So
not?
they named their movement in terms of being in opposition to slavery and being in favor of freedom from slavery. That was
Right.
their identity. Did that hurt them?
No, it's not a matter of hurting. I'm not
No,
saying
it
it's
didn't.
it's not
Meanwhile, it's too late. I have zero interest in strategic, pedantic discussions about whether or not we should use a different word other than atheist. I'm an atheist till the day I'm fucking dead. Drop it.
okay. Well, let's move on then to another one and see what
Okay.
your opinion is on that.
Oh, I thought you meant move on to another caller because that's where I went. Oh, well, if you've got another one, I guess you can call back. But I must say, I find that, we've tried over and over again to not use the word atheist. It's failed every time. Hey, let's call ourselves the brights. And then, but it will suggest that everybody else is dim by comparison and it'll never take off. Oh, let's use freethinker and enlightened and all kinds of stuff. And when you get in a discussion with people and you say, hey, what does that mean? Oh, it means atheist. Oh, it means I don't believe in a God. You still get to the same point. I'm bald. I'm bald in part because of genetics, and I'm bald in part because of choice. I shave my head regularly. My hair is thin, not as thin as it would look on the camera. It's not, I could say it's not vanity, but I look better bald than I do not bald. I look better with my head cleaned up than without it, or at least I look more like me and more normal. Cool. What does that tell us? Does that mean that I shouldn't use the word bald? Did bald stop being an adequate description of me? Is bald something that's being foisted upon me by the hair product Illuminati? When you say dumb shit like atheist is the label that's being foisted on us by the religio anarcho capitalist blah blah
Industrial
blah.
complex.
There we go. The religious industrial complex is so dumb I couldn't even remember it. It makes me not want to listen to the rest of your points. So if you call back, I hope your first point is better than one that is absolutely ridiculous.
And the bottom line is I hear people all the time try to do that, but at the end of the day, it's just a useful descriptor for what we are. And every person I've ever heard that's trying to do that has gone back to using the term because it's just convenient and useful.
Yep. And in the process of that, we lost the theist caller.
Oh.
How annoying that I decided to take an atheist caller ahead of a theist caller. I got an atheist calling to suggest that there's a problem with the atheist word. And we lost our only theist caller over it. I'm very sorry. My apologies to the theist caller and the other theist callers that were there. If you call back in, I'll move you to the top of the queue.
We can hit our margin if you want.
Well,
hello.
I'm gonna give Arna one more chance.
Okay.
So, hello, Arna. What was your other one you wanted to add?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, Matt, that I caused you to lose your theist call. It was absolutely not my intention, obviously. The other one was, as I said, I prefaced it that this is going to be academic and pedantic, which you recognized, but
Arna, I need zero fucking preface from you now. I just want to know what you wanted to add.
Okay, the one that I wanted to add is, and we slip in and out of it, is that to use the term God instead of a God, because what we do is by using God, we already
goodbye. Goodbye.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Very good. Okay, bye-bye, Matt.
Very bad. Very monumental waste of everyone's fucking time. Oh, I said at the beginning this would be pedantic. Well, then you were completely correct. Yeah. Grammatically, there are circumstances under which you would use a God or some God or God without a capital letter. Grammatically, there are others where you would use the God or God with a capital G. If you were Jewish, you would do G-D, because for some reason, even though it's not the name of God, you must show some respect when you're typing it so that you don't accidentally type the thing that is a loose approximation of what might be viewed as the name of a God. At the end of the day, if you are sitting around wondering if the atheist label or the word God or the difference between a God and the God is going to make significant differences to the effectiveness of the secular community, don't ever fucking call me. Do not ever call. It's not remotely interesting. It is not a practical reality. It gets us absolutely nothing. And the world is fucking on fire by religious zealots with Project 2025 who are taking over and taking everybody's rights while God believers call in to obfuscate and shift and be dishonest as fuck and fail to give any sort of thing. And yet our side is filled evidently with people who give a fuck whether or not we should spending too much time about a God versus the God, or whether or not we use atheist versus agnostic versus free thinker versus skeptic. Fuck all the way fucking off. You are not doing anything to make any of this remotely better. You are wasting your time and our time. Please stop. Please, 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 please. Please don't prove I'm right by calling back.
We use words to communicate with each other. There is nothing wrong with using words we all understand and have in common. Figure.
I have plenty of issues with language and grammar. I often used to hate when people would write things like the word two with the number two and the word you with you and all that. And basically the text speech and leet speech and all that stuff. It would irritate me. Now it doesn't as much. And now, while I am keen to point out, typos and grammar problems on occasion, it doesn't bother me as much because I'm at a point now where it's all I really want to do is know what you mean. If we got to do a tap dance because you used leet speak or you used a jargon or vernacular that I'm not familiar with, okay, then we'll do that little tap dance. But if we can get to a point where we can at least understand each other, that's a win. And I find that it's not happening often enough. It's really on. It's a strange world I live in. But we got a theist caller, or we have a theist caller back. So Tony, pronounced she, her, is calling from New York. She's a former Jehovah's Witness within the last 2 years.
Oh, hi.
But the process took a while. So, well, you still believe in a creator, but you've lost faith in God. So, Tony, let's see if Owen and I
it's a little confusing. Yeah. I guess I still believe in a creator because I guess everything, the world that we live in, it's hard to believe that there's not a creator. But I guess I'm kind of new to your podcast, and I literally it's my first time hearing of you and seeing your video.
Wow, welcome.
And I found you because I was on Instagram, and this video literally out of nowhere just popped up on my algorithm, and it was you. And you was asking a question, and you said, did Adam and Eve know right from wrong before they ate the fruit? And I said, and that really got me thinking, and I'm like, wow. And I guess the caller that you were speaking to completely disregarded the question, but you really got me thinking because I was raised in a cult and I'm 32 years old and my whole world shattered. So I guess my question is, why don't you believe in a God? I guess I can understand your thinking and your opinions in regards to religion, But I guess my question is, do you not believe that there is a possible creator? Or maybe like in a spiritual sense?
I can answer real quick and then just let Owen take over because Owen's
Oh,
background
okay.
is better tied to yours. But no, I do not see sufficient evidence or need for any sort of intelligent creator. I
Okay.
understand how people get to those conclusions. I think they're just
Mhm.
flawed. I think it's like deciding who the murderer is when you don't have enough evidence is kind of how I'm looking at it.
So
Wow.
you're an ex-Jehovah's Witness?
Say that one more time.
You're an ex-Jehovah's Witness?
Yes. I'm pretty proud of myself. Took a long time. It was very hard. Like,
Are you familiar
extremely hard.
with me, or is it the first time seeing
No, this
any
is
video?
my first time ever seeing both of you, meeting both of you. Like, I've never heard of your show. Like, I was really shocked,
picked
and
the right
I
week.
appreciate what you guys are doing.
Yeah, you called into the right show. I'm an
Yeah.
ex-Jehovah's Witness, and I got
Oh
big on
my God, you're gonna make me cry.
Yeah, I mean, that's like what my whole career has been about.
Wow.
So you believe in God still? Why? What is your reason for believing in God still? Why haven't you kind of like walked away from it completely? Because when I walked away, I remember hearing all the stuff that they said about Catholics being wrong, Methodists being wrong, Baptists being wrong. And I kind of
Yeah.
washed my hands and said, oh, they were all wrong. I just had to go one more step and say, oh, Jehovah's Witnesses are wrong too. So I'm done. So why didn't you take that step?
I guess, like, were you raised in it, or like, were you born in it?
Yep, I got baptized. I was on my way to
Oh,
being a
okay.
ministerial servant. I was an auxiliary
Oh,
pioneer.
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was a pioneer, a full-time pioneer. I guess maybe I'm holding on to it because little by little, I feel like I've been waking up more and more. And I really, truly, I don't know, like, everyone is different. Every member is different, but like, I truly believed in it. And
Yeah, I believed in it too. Absolutely. It gets in you.
yeah.
But
So, I'm sorry. I don't mean to cry.
I understand. You don't have to be sorry for that. I absolutely 100% understand.
We have all spent our time crying over this shit.
Yep.
You're
We
right.
have.
It's not worth it, but I think I'm crying more so because it's very infuriating.
Yeah.
It's very upsetting to be 32 years old and your whole life is gone. I mean, not your whole life, but like I didn't go to college. Like, I didn't go to school. Like, I spent so much going door to door talking about the Bible, thinking that I was saving lives, and I was really wasting my time. You know?
I do
So
know.
when
Yeah.
when I saw you guys, I'm like, this is really helpful.
The way that I view it is nothing was truly wasted. My time in the religion gave me a lot. Like, my moral values pretty closely align with theirs on war, for example. I'm very anti-war. I agree. You can trust a Jehovah's Witness to, if you put your wallet down on a table and walk out of the room, you can trust them to not pick it up and take money out of it. And I appreciate that that kind of moral framework that they have. Also, you went door to door. That means you know a lot about this subject. And I value knowledge over anything. I love to learn things and understand things.
I agree.
So for that reason alone, I wouldn't consider your life wasted. I don't consider mine wasted, but I 100% understand where you are. I've been there too.
But even just listening to you guys and like the other callers, like I don't know who's talking because like I only see my phone, but like one of you are really blunt, and I love it.
That's Matt.
I like how blunt you are.
I'm the blunt one.
Oh, that's Matt. Hi, Matt.
Hi.
I really appreciate you guys doing this, and I think I appreciate more that you help people to critically think and like to look outside the box, because we're so used to being in a box and like just reading from one book, like when they're all using the same book, just from different, it's a different religion, but same like ideology. Like they just believe in a creator, they believe in the Adam and Eve and things like that. But once you start thinking critically and thinking outside the box, it's like that whole world crumbles. And I guess I have more questions on like, how do you find purpose when you realize there's not a creator?
So
What do you think, Matt?
I got a weird question for you, Tony.
Oh,
Let's
sure.
imagine that instead of being in the United States, you lived in another country. And in that country, when you were born, the government decided exactly what job you would have, whether you wanted it or not. Would you prefer that system to being free to choose in the United States?
No.
So why would you prefer a system where a God has created you with his divine plan and goal and purpose in mind, instead of a world where you are free to make whatever
Yeah.
purpose you want for your life?
Right. Yeah, I 100%
That's
agree with
how I
that.
came down on it. As soon as I
And I've
realized that
always questioned
there is
that within
no
myself. Yeah.
externally imposed purpose, and that's a good thing. It's what allows you to have whatever purpose you want. It's like saying, hey, I've got this big bank account, but you're trying to tell me that 93% of it needs to go to your issue, and I only get 7% for my issue. If I stop
Right.
hanging out with you, I don't have to give you 93%. I can give you none, or I can give you the 7 and I'll keep the 93%. Maybe we
Right.
can both benefit. But just the default towards freedom, it's like, oh, there's a great book, and Tony, if you want it and it's out of your price range, you ping me and I'll buy you a copy. No shit.
Oh my God.
I may or may not have to pay for it because I'm friends with the guy that put it together. But and I'm
Okay.
in the book. But if you go
Okay.
to theatheistbook.com, you will find a book.
Theatheistbook.com. Okay.
Theatheistbook.com. You will find a coffee table book called A Better Life. It was put together by my friend Chris Johnson. He went around. He interviewed hundreds of atheists, and people like me, but also, Penn and Teller and Darren Brown and Richard Dawkins and famous atheists that are out there as well, on what they thought about and what they cared about with regard to joy and meaning in life. The book is outstanding. Right. There is a film that you can watch. There's a link there. I think it's $8 to watch the film. It includes a lot of interviews with a lot of different
I think people. I would like to watch that.
So if you want to watch
can I ask, were you always, is this Matt I'm speaking to?
Yeah.
Were
Matt.
you always atheist?
No. I walked down the aisle at the age of 5 in a Southern Baptist church in Gladstone, Missouri, to accept Jesus into my heart at a revival. And then I was active in the church all the way through my teen years because I thought God wanted me to be a preacher, and so did my parents, and so did my church. I was in church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, some Saturday weekend stuff, but was very active right up until I left home at 18 to join the Navy. And then I became much less active in church.
Wow.
And eventually became an atheist.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's a huge, that's a big story. Wow. And like your process of becoming atheist, how was that for you?
It was about, so I got laid off from a job, and I thought it was God punishing me because I had decided to work in the tech industry and not be a minister. And when he took that job away, I thought God was punishing me. So I spent about 1.5 years in pretty serious prayer and study, trying to figure out, okay, how do I go and become a preacher now if that's what God wants? And I've covered the whole story on other shows and things, but that process is what led me to say, oh, I don't have a good reason to believe this. And, oh, it seems neither does anybody else. And, it was it was about 19 months of pretty serious discovery before I
Wow,
called
19 months.
myself an atheist. And then it never stopped after that. I still do Bible studies. I still do research on stuff. I still interact with people regularly. So
Yeah. And can I ask Owen a
Owen,
question?
Yeah,
sure.
lay it on me.
Oh, hi, Owen. I guess my question is for you, like, because you're an XJW, how long were you an XJW, and like, when did you leave, and like, what was your process of becoming atheist like?
I was born into it. My whole family was in it. I had an aunt and 2 cousins, my mom, my dad, my 3 siblings, and everything. And we were first generation Jehovah's Witness. And
Oh,
I got baptized
I'm a
at.
3rd generation.
Oh, wow. So your grandparents might have
Yeah,
been around for like Fred Franz and the.
yeah. They
and then
actually learned the truth in Puerto Rico and then moved to the U.S. like that,
Wow.
and that's how it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
So I'm
sorry, I don't
first.
mean to cut you off. You could
No,
continue.
you're good. Yeah, I'm first generation, and at about 13, I think, I got baptized. I was the first kid in my congregation to get baptized, and they all followed suit. And
Right.
I did go auxiliary pioneering. I didn't actually pioneer. My mom did, but
Mhm.
I, like, I was very, very sheltered, as I'm sure you understand. Like, I didn't have any friends
Yeah.
or any of that stuff. So when I stopped homeschooling and went to high school, I just
Oh,
kind
you were
of,
homeschooled.
for a short time, yeah, for 4 years when I was a teenager. And it did a number on my head. Like, you shouldn't be separate from people like that. But I went to high
No,
school.
100%. I agree.
I lost it. I just, I went to parties and I hung out with people and I got a girlfriend and everything. And I got disfellowshipped.
Good for you.
Yeah. And I still believed it from 18 when I was disfellowshipped all the way to like 23 when I finally started questioning everything.
Wow.
And
So you were disfellowshipped.
yeah, I was. And the thing that got me to realize that this is all ridiculous was my brother-in-law telling me, do you know that Charles Taze Russell had a mansion? Or I'm sorry, Joseph Rutherford. Joseph Rutherford had a mansion that he like had built and deeded to like Moses and Isaac and stuff, and he just stayed in it to keep it warm for them, supposedly, until the end came.
What?
Yeah, I don't know it. I mean, it's a little thing, but that kind of made me realize that they were all full of it, and it wasn't just
Yeah.
or any of the others. And by the way, I wrote a book about this too, and I will send you one if you ping Matt and give him your
I'm
address.
definitely going to ping him.
Also, check out my
yeah.
channel because I talk about Jehovah's Witnesses at length. And there's another guy on this channel.
Okay, yeah. I guess just to be brief, because I don't want to take up your guys' time. I know you probably have other callers. I got this fellowship. So basically, when I met my partner,
Yeah.
I had decided. My parents told me after being pioneer, they were not going to support me being a pioneer anymore because I didn't have a job. So my parents were supporting me. And like that kind of like really like I hit a wall. Like I was like, what are you talking about? You've been telling me to be a pioneer my whole life. You've been, pushing me to do this. And now I'm not going to have any source of income to be able to do this. And you guys don't promote schools in like higher education. So how am I supposed to support myself? And so like I applied to a program, and it was the scariest thing. Like that's when I first like really learned how to take the bus and the train on my own. Like I had major anxiety, panic attacks, like and I was doing all this on my own, and I come from a big family. Like
how long ago is this? Like, how old are you? Were you in your 20s when
I'm turning 32 this year. And I'm sorry, I didn't hear your other question.
Oh, you're fine. I was just asking how old you were when this happened, and how long has it been?
So I would say that what woke me up, like what started waking me up, was when I went to Pioneer School.
SKE?
Not SKE, that's ski, right? No, that's separate. This is Pioneer Schools for full-time pioneers.
I'm unfamiliar.
Is
this new?
No. This has always been like that.
I don't know. Okay,
SKE came after, right?
Yeah, it did. SKE came after I had already left. I didn't know there was a Pioneer School for some reason. I mean, I knew there was.
Oh no, yeah. There's always been a Pioneer School, yeah. And then SKE came for single brothers and sisters that want to do like I guess missionary work, or like they want to preach where the need is greater, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what I know, from me personally. Like, if you do your own like research, you'll probably find out more information. But like from my understanding and from me being raised in and all that, there's always been a Pioneer School that they've done. And like the crazy thing is, I just started waking up because being a pioneer, I saw all these cliques, and like I really took the Bible serious. Like I took, people's lives and like just humanity, like really, really serious. And I really wanted to help people and I wanted to save lives, but like I just saw too many questionable things.
Yeah.
And even like financial class, like there was cliques. Like if you weren't within a financial bracket, it's like you were not in the clique. It's a little weird. It's odd. And I guess as I got older, I started seeing more and more. But I guess I was around 21, 22 when I officially left. And I was even scared to talk to people at the school. Like I thought they were gonna kill me. Like I didn't think that people outside the cult were good people in a sense. I don't know how to explain it. That's the best way I can explain it.
I absolutely understand.
But when I got into the program,
can you hear me?
Sorry, I hear you now.
Oh, you're good. I was gonna say when I got out, I felt like if they hugged me, then something was gonna grow on me. Just random people, normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like really bad how they make the outside world, the worldly people, they call it, they're worldly. They make them seem really violent and like they're out to get you. And like, that's how I entered into the society kind of. And slowly that kind of like, I started seeing more and more like, wow, these people are actually nice. Like, like they're not mean. They're not trying to hurt me, and they're actually trying to help me. And I'm learning more now than ever before. And I was learning so much new things. And I met my partner and I ended up getting pregnant.
Okay.
And all of that happened so quick because I didn't know what the heck was happening. Like, it was just like so much new things entering my mind. And that's when I got this fellowship. But ultimately, I guess my process of believing a creator is been in question for a while now. And I guess seeing you guys and how you are helping people to think has helped me. And I just want to say thank you. I will really definitely message you guys.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on and talking to us. And like Matt and I said, there's no reason to accept it. And if there is, I will accept it. So just think about it. And I'm glad that you found your way out and you realize how corrupt the whole system was, as much as I realize it.
Yeah, and I don't know who said it, but I do agree with the fact that I do believe religion is a tactic that they use to control a majority of people. And I learned that recently by like doing a lot of research of like where religion came from and like what was the first religion and like how did this even come about. But I don't mean to take up your guys' time, but I just
You're good. Thank you for calling in. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
All right. We'll
Thank you
talk
so
to you
much.
later on then.
All right. I'll be in the chat. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it, Tony. Thanks so much. It's deconstruction is a wild process. It's a little different. It's one of those things like I didn't deconstruct as a Jehovah's Witness, so I definitely don't know as much. And it's very important to make sure that we got a diversity of backgrounds and views on the show, because Tony's not alone. Neither is anybody else. Don't forget about recoveringfromreligion.org as a great resource as well. And Tony, if you hit me up, I just checked on the at the atheistbook.com. You can actually watch the HD version, like a 24-hour rental of the movie for $3. So if $3 is a bridge too far, hit me up and I'll get you the rental, if not better.
Yeah, and I cannot believe I didn't know about Pioneer School. Like, I wrote about this at length, and I didn't know about Pioneer School. People said that it's been around for a long time. That's bizarre.
Okay.
I gotta renew my JW Cred license. Anyway, we got another?
Yeah, you had asked for a Marine in Netherlands. He and any pronouns. Welcome, Marine.
Hello there. That would be
Hey.
Marijn, by the way, but
Marijn.
no offense taken
Thank you.
whatsoever.
Thank you so much, Marijn.
So lay it on us. What's your question?
Yes. So I was wondering whether you'd heard of the idea, social theory, whatever, of the American civil religion, and if so, what your thoughts on it are.
American civil religion?
It's
Yeah.
an idea from, I don't know, late 60s that built up, kind of broadening the definition of religion to include its syncretization with politics. So there's something distinctly religious about being American, which is a weird mix of Judeo-Christian views and the political views of, America first, and it varies as to what is
Yeah.
included or not, just like it varies with Christianity. I think you can put a box around any grouping of things and say these things are packaged together. I don't know how useful it is, because at the end of the day, there's also this odd within Christians that America can be and frequently is anti-Christian. And so in the same way that their religion is going to triumph over country. It's going to be God, then government, then what's after that. So I don't know what benefit we get out of talking about American civil religion, other than an extra point of confusion and identity that I just don't know what the value is.
That's a fair assessment, I suppose, but I personally find it a really interesting, if maybe sort of eye-opening way of looking at it. So, for context, yes, I am Dutch. I'm in the Netherlands. I did grow up in the U.S., so I think I have a decent amount of perspective on the contrast. And while I agree that, like, say, American nationalism, American exceptionalism, whatever you want to call it, there's certainly no religious claim to it, as in there's no supernatural claim to it of any kind. It does bear many of the same hallmarks as a Judeo-Christian organized religion. It has its holy book, the Constitution, the terms of which are emphasized or ignored, whichever is most convenient at the time. The Second Amendment versus Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. It has its holy prophets, the founding fathers, are mythologized profoundly, right? And even profoundly
Are they, though?
progressive people in America, they always go like, this isn't what the founders would have wanted, et cetera, and that always sort of bugs me.
I
Well,
don't think
Because
it's the big deal you think it is, because I barely hear anyone talk about the founders anymore at all. And
and
I've been on the record for years as saying it doesn't matter what the founders thought.
yeah,
I only ever talk about the founders in the first place because those nutcases are talking about the founders. So
yes,
it's only in relation to them.
there,
And yeah, I get where you're coming from. I generally don't think that. I mean, it's kind of just like a mindset more than anything, right? People
yes,
just find
very
themselves
much.
in this bizarre mindset overall, right?
Yeah, I'd say that's a decent assessment.
Yeah, I think that I wouldn't call it a like all right, just to talk about like general nationalism today. I wouldn't call it like a religion exactly, but even in Germany in the 30s, there was, though Nazism was not a religion, there was like a deep deep rooted fervor in the
Hmm.
leader, and I think it comes down to more how deeply invested people are emotionally in religion or
Yeah,
in politics.
yeah,
And nationalism kind of lights that fire and makes it even brighter.
true that.
But yeah, I haven't heard of the American civil religion. I know that we
Hmm.
have a Christian nationalist movement today that is forming out its own religious system. There's a full blown Trump theology, not like people that, I mean, they
For sure.
believe he's the son of man, and I think that I imagine that that's the American civil religion. People have probably been relegated to that subset of political culture, I would assume, unless they're still around.
I would personally say that it's more like uh, the MAGA movement is just a particularly virulent sect of the broader religion that has emerged.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Um, I suppose I could see that. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of different nationalist religious
Hmm.
groups. There are a lot of religious groups that just kind of include nationalism as part of it, but not as the primary piece.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm with you.
and like while it's a religion that doesn't exist uh, aside from, and it doesn't exist in contrast to, say, Christianity or atheism, but rather exists in parallel to one's that, okay, for lack of a better word, theistic religion. As in, you can be an American exceptionalist, American nationalist, whatever, and also a Christian and also an atheist. But it
I'll tell
does
you.
indeed synergize pretty well with certain forms of Christianity, which
Yeah,
is
here's
why
how
we
I
got the MAGA
kind of. This is how I've drawn it out. I'm going to write about the Trump theology soon, and I'm going to talk about this, but I've drawn it out like this. People have different moral frameworks that they go by in their head, and a lot of the time they conflict. Like there are white nationalists who believe that immigration is evil and that white people are superior and all that. But they're
Yeah,
also
those,
Christian. And
yeah.
they, as Christians, it's like their secondary moral framework. It's not the primary, the most important one, which would be white nationalism. So they
Hmm.
go with
Hmm.
one of those moral frameworks. They go with the primary when possible, I'm sorry, they go with the secondary when possible, but when the primary supersedes it, they default to the primary. And that creates a cognitive dissonance sometimes. Like,
Hmm.
said to love your neighbor and all of that. So they're going to completely ignore that part of Christian doctrine in favor of white nationalist doctrine. So I find
Yeah.
a lot of people with like multiple moral frameworks, and I suppose I probably have multiple moral frameworks to some degree. A lot of us probably
I
do. I can't
I
think
don't
of it.
think I don't think anyone exists without some degree of multiple moral frameworks.
Yeah,
It seems
I try to
extremely
keep
unhealthy
mine.
to me to base your entire morality off a single point. Oh, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
No, you're good. I was just going to say, I try to make sure my moral framework is cohesive and makes sense overall, and there aren't any like cognitive dissonance or contradictions or anything. But yeah, you were saying?
That's all a sensible person could do.
Yeah.
We exist in a bewildering reality, and the best we can do is work to understand it bit by bit.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, it's, there's a context under which it's fair to say that Judeo-Christian is a fictional categorization that somebody made up for propaganda purposes, that when it suits them for Jews and Christians to be on the same side, it's, ooh, look at our Judeo-Christian roots. And by the way, that would also include Islam, because then we're going to categorize it as the Abrahamic religions. But when push comes to shove,
but when you want to exclude brown people, all of a sudden it's Christianity.
Well, maybe. I don't even know that that's necessarily the case, since Christianity definitely started with and includes brown people. But
sure.
But the notion is that while there may be some usefulness on occasion to call it Judeo-Christian, when push comes to shove, those things are not together. And the same thing with Protestant and Catholic, and the same thing, pick any division. When you get down to the point where that division breaks, it breaks. And so when you look at something like American civil religion, I think it breaks at the first glance as anything remotely useless. There are people who are going to be Christians who I'm going to be much more in agreement with than certain jingoists. And there are going to be certain jingoists that I'm going to be much more in agreement with on a number of issues than certain Christians. But we can say that if we lump together the jingoist Christians, I'm probably less likely to agree with them than I am, anybody from either group. So,
you know what? I think I can agree with you on that.
Awesome possum. We're going to move on. Appreciate the call. My throat is weirdly scratchy today, and my head is very sluggish today.
I hope that doesn't mean you're coming down with something. Stuff's passing around New York City right now.
Yeah, we did a reptile expo, not this weekend, but the previous weekend. But I was out on Wednesday night. Huge thank you, by the way, to Seth Andrews and Forrest Valkai for subbing in for me on my show, The Hang Up, this weekend. And by the way, if you're not aware, there's a bunch of other shows here on this network. We do the Sunday show at 2:00 Central. It's now 3:40 or so. We got one more caller on hold, but we may get another caller. We'll leave a line open for theists just in case. Myself and Owen are here today. Tonight on the Sunday show After Dark is Forrest Valkai and Durante Lamar. I can't imagine a better post-Super or mid-Super Bowl show to distract you from a game that may not be all that much fun. So Forrest and Durante will be on later tonight. Tomorrow's Skeptalk starts at 6 p.m. Central with Forrest Valkai and Roxanne. Tuesday's Chewed Gum is Alyssa and Eve. Wednesday, I'll be on the Hang Up this week with Phil Ferguson, who agreed to be on last week and then got moved and bumped because I wasn't feeling well. And Thursday's Transatlantic Collins show is going to be Art and Heart and Josie Caballero. We have got at least one more call. So this will be unusual because Mick is calling from Australia to ask something about human sacrifice. So Mick, good day.
Hello, Matt. Hello, Owen. How you guys doing?
Doing well.
Fantastic. I'm just ringing in about. I just want to get you guys' opinion on it, whether I'm on the right track with this or not. About how theists worship a God who, in one time or another, demanded human sacrifice. What's your thoughts? I've got a few passages here that I sort of.
What are our thoughts about the fact that God did demand human sacrifice? I don't think he actually demanded human sacrifice at any point, to my knowledge.
Well, I'm going through a few passages here. For example, take Exodus, was it Exodus 22, verse 29. Here we go. It says,
Okay.
you must give me your firstborn son. We're talking about some of the laws here, some of the Mosaic laws.
So
I'm not
first
sure
of
what.
all, you said Exodus 22. That to me, I hear in Exodus 13. So Exodus 22, verse what?
Verse 29. It says,
Okay.
do not hold back offerings from your
That
grain or
says,
your
thou
vats.
shalt not delay to offer the first of thy ripe fruits and of thy liquors, the firstborn of thy sons, shalt thou give unto me. Where does it say that's human
Do,
sacrifice?
do the same with your cattle. Well, that's what I wanted to get your opinion on. Also, the other one that I was looking at was when they took out the Midianite, and we're looking at, where are we? They're splitting up all the plunder, and here we go. They've killed all the firstborn
Numbers
males and all that
31.
thing. Yeah, and they're split up. They're splitting up all the booty.
And it doesn't say anything at all about human sacrifice there either. So keep going.
Well, how would you take, where is it? Verse 40, 16,000 people of whom the tribute for the Lord was 32.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say that would be, they offered them as tribute to the Lord as human sacrifice?
I would say that if that is one of a number of different ways to understand it, and I find it reprehensible whether they were offered up as sacrifice or not. But if you're going to talk about human sacrifice, if you're going to interrupt me, go ahead.
No, sorry, sorry, Matt. Hello.
So I'm telling you from the standpoint of Bible scholars and believers, nothing you've cited is clear confirmation of human sacrifice. You have skipped around the things that are most reasonable. Now, the story of Jephthah and him agreeing to sacrifice his daughter is much closer to a clear case of human sacrifice.
Yes.
But
yes, that's what,
I guess it would depend on what we mean.
The fact of the matter is, there's also, for me, the biggest problem is the story of Abraham and Isaac. Because if God is doing a test when he says, Abraham, kill your son, if God was the type of God that would not have asked for human sacrifice, then the only right answer from Abraham would be to say, I don't know who you are, but my God would never demand human sacrifice. And so that would be the answer that was rewarded. But attempting to sacrifice his son is the answer that gets rewarded, which means that God is consistent with a God that would demand human sacrifice, but it doesn't actually demand human sacrifice at any time other than that one incident there. And it lets it out of that one, which means the religion, while it may have had ties to human sacrifice and may have been engaged in human sacrifice, is expressly in opposition to gods that engage in human sacrifice, denouncing them, and never once actually says, yes, make a human sacrifice on its own. So I think that this is an absolutely ridiculous way to challenge the Bible, because anybody who knows and or understands the Bible will have a counter to point out that, no, you're reading into it things that aren't justified. And even the people who don't know the Bible will at least know that's not what my God is about. And so if you want to pretend that a religion is about human sacrifice, it needs to clearly have been advocating repeatedly for human sacrifice as part of its worship. And that just doesn't happen.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, Matt. I wasn't sure I was onto something there or not, and you don't hear much about it from anywhere in religion at all.
And for good reason.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yep,
I thought I was onto something, but damn it.
It's all good. Thanks, Matt.
Okay. Thanks, mate.
It's one of those things where there's a number of passages where it seems like a sacrifice occurred. So, for example, the story of Jephthah. The abbreviated version is Jephthah wants to win a war. Jephthah makes a deal with God and says, hey, if you let me win this battle, I will sacrifice to you whatever comes out of the door of my home to greet me when I come back. Now, the first thing is, why would you make this deal? I want to win this battle. I'll sacrifice whatever you want, God. And you know that, maybe it's a goat that comes out of your house first. Maybe it's one of your kids. And God evidently would know exactly what's going to come out of your house, which means if God made the deal and let you win the battle, then God knew that your daughter was going to be the thing to come out of the house and knew that you needed to sacrifice her. Now, you can do any kind of story twisting you want to say that, oh, well, what really happened there is he dedicated her to service in the temple. Doesn't fucking matter. If she became a temple slave, a temple prostitute, a blood sacrifice, her wishes are not considered at all. She is a prop. She is a token with which to gamble with for both Jephthah and God, which means whether or not there was a sacrifice, whether or not there was a human sacrifice, is irrelevant. The story is grossly immoral no matter what happened. And if you try to go the extra mile to be like, ooh, Jephthah sacrificed his daughter in a human sacrifice, just like they denounced with Baal, you have now taken 2 steps beyond what you can demonstrate, and unnecessarily. It's just a strategic, it's a pitch you don't have to swing at.
Also, a lot of people understand human sacrifice in a certain context, like the context of sacrifices to Baal or Baal. Going to war to kill a bunch of Midianites isn't human sacrifice in the way we understand it to be.
Yeah. And if you kill off a bunch of them, you can count them as tribute, even if they're not, sacrificed to this, other than they were going to slaughter them all anyway, because they can't risk having them or their children rise up to fight them again in the next generation.
Right.
All right. We have one more call if we're ready to go. And this one is a call from Michael in Australia, pronouncer he, him, who has an argument for the possibility of a God. And so, Michael, since we're going to talk about, I don't know what's going on with your mic, but stop it.
Oh, sorry.
If we're going to have a conversation about the possibility of a God, I need to know if you're talking about a mere logical possibility, which is you can't prove it's impossible, or a demonstration that a particular God is actually a possible explanation.
So you can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Okay. So, basically, my argument is that, like, I don't believe in any particular God anymore. I used to be Christian, right?
Michael.
But I deconverted, right?
Michael, did you hear what I asked?
Yes. I'm sorry.
If we're going to be discussing the possibility, if we're going to be discussing the possibility of a God, I need to know if your position is, I need to know if your position is that God is logically possible, which merely means you can't show that there's a contradiction and it's not been demonstrated to be impossible. Or does it mean you can demonstrate that God is actually a possible explanation for some phenomenon? Which of those you're arguing? Hello? You may need to tap your phone to wake your phone up and then tap again.
Okay, so but basically, my argument is that because the universe is not
Michael, did you hear the question that I asked you?
Yes, you asked me if.
Then why are you not answering my question and instead going on to your argument for the second time as if I didn't fucking ask a question?
Oh, I'm sorry. I must have asked the question when my stupid phone went to sleep. Sorry about that. Okay, I'll answer the question now. I believe I have a logical argument for the existence of God.
That doesn't answer my question at all, but fuck it. I give up. Go ahead.
Okay. So, because the universe is eternal, I believe that you would need a generator that has
You think the
unlimited
universe
energy.
is eternal?
No, I don't think the universe is eternal.
Okay, go on. So you'd need a
Wait.
generator, you said?
Wait, no, Michael.
Sorry?
Did you just say you don't believe the universe is eternal?
Yes.
But because your argument begins with the premise, because the universe is eternal. Hello?
No, I said that the universe isn't eternal.
Okay.
So premise one is because the universe is not eternal.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, continue.
Okay, because the universe isn't eternal, I believe there is a logical argument for God, which would be that the universe.
Michael, no, you're not serious. This isn't serious. You're not listening to my questions. Would you please just get to whatever Baba Booey punchline you want to go to, because this is a waste.
Okay, maybe I haven't really thought this through. So, yeah. Sorry.
That's it? Okay, that's it. I'd be happy. You didn't have to hang up. I'd be happy to try to figure out what it was you thought you were arguing. But you called in to say you wanted to argue for the possibility of God. And so immediately I have to ask, what type of possibility are we talking about? Because if we're only talking about a logical possibility, and the definition of a logical possibility is X is logically possible until such time as X is demonstrated to be impossible, either by contradiction or whatever. Because under that definition, everything is possible unless it's logically contradictory. So a married bachelor is still impossible, but it's possible that a winged ape-like creature that can survive in space and excretes diamonds is currently orbiting a star in galaxy 32814. That sort of possibility is the sort of trivial possibility. So we have to distinguish between that and an actual possibility, something that is possible given the state of affairs, either possible within the universe, given what we know and how the universe operates, or possible in the broader experience of the metaverse, based on what we know there. The problem is that we have no ability to investigate outside of the bounds of our universe, which is how we got into that other problem earlier. And with no ability to investigate beyond the bounds of our universe, it's hard to say what is or isn't possible. Does it even make sense to talk about before time? Does it even make sense to talk about outside the universe? And so if you want to talk about a God being possible, what I mean is we have some state of affairs. Let's say the existence of this cell phone. And what we need to do is consider what are the candidate explanations for the origin of this cell phone. And we'll just break it down at the, designed by an intelligence or not designed by an intelligence. Now we've got a direct logical negation. All of the available evidence we have suggests that this is almost certainly designed by an intelligence, because every example we have works that way. And no examples that we have of cell phones is one that wasn't designed by an intelligence. That could change. We could come across a cell phone somewhere and then have confirmation that it wasn't designed by an intelligence, but we don't have that. So when you start making a list of candidate explanations, you could look at why does the universe exist as it does? And you could say, ooh, it exists as it does because there's a God. Okay, why did you decide that God should be considered a viable candidate explanation? Is there a demonstration that the God you're talking about could even possibly exist? That's the difference. That's the possibly that we're talking about. Not merely nobody's ruled it out, but here's a good reason to rule it in as a candidate explanation. And one of the things that frequently falls apart is that you find a couple of reasons that you think make it seem good enough to rule it in, and then you fail to consider how that decision to rule in a God impacts all of the other things in reality. If you need a God to explain the origin of reality, and it has this power to do things like create a universe or kick off a universe, what does that say about all the other physical functions in reality? Can that God violate them or not? Do you have to consider God in all of your calculations for everything you're doing? So far, we haven't had anybody even demonstrate that it's possible. Last call for today. John's calling from New Hampshire. Pronouns are he, him. John wants to talk about charities, or maybe it's not the last call. I see another one screening up. John, what's going on? What charities are we talking about?
Wow, Matt. Hey, I'm glad I got on so quickly. So I donate to freedomfromreligion.org, the ACLU. You know, there's so many charities, and today I just got one that I hadn't heard of before. I got a solicitation in the mail for a charity called People for the American Way, and when I looked them up on Wikipedia and on the internet,
Yeah.
I guess they were founded by Norman Lear. He was a TV producer back in the day that did All in the Family and all that stuff. But
Yep.
I was just wondering, and I wanted to get your opinion on if you think they're reputable and what charities
Yes.
do you support? Because there's just so many of them out there, and I kind of wanted to get your opinion on them because I'm about to send People for the American Way some money, and I just,
You mind if I go first, Matt?
And here's another thing. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Here's another thing. It almost seems like someone like me who can afford maybe $50 a month every now and then, it's almost it's a little disheartening when I think of Elon Musk having $250 billion to spend whatever he wants on. Like, is my little $50 doing anything?
I can tell you.
Anyway,
yeah. I can tell you, my wife works for American Atheists, full disclosure. People for the American Way is the parent organization of Right Wing Watch, if you've ever heard of them. And they have been consistently very good historically. Now, I'm not exactly sure what they do with the money specifically, but American Atheists, for example, has lawyers that go through bills that are being submitted by like state senators and going through Congress. Like, for example, like child marriage bills are being submitted, and they're trying to pass these bills to allow 12-year-olds to marry 50-year-olds. And American Atheists has lawyers that go in and argue against these bills, and they do a lot of good. They close the gaps for this stuff more often than you'd know. Elon Musk is spending his money on a federal level on advertising and stuff. And, it's hard to kind of overcome that. But we can do a little bit of good at the very least on a local level, which is what American Atheist does. FFRF does it too, I believe. I'm not sure. Like, each charity has their own system. Oh, and you know what else American Atheist does? They have a lawyer on staff that works with volunteers that go into like town halls that argue with the officials, like the councils and stuff, to try to prevent bills from passing or city regulations or anything. That's what American Atheist does specifically. So yeah, your money does go a long way depending on the charity you go with.
Cool. Well, thanks, Owen. I just wanted to say, long-time watcher, big fan of both of you guys. Keep up the good work, and thanks for all you do.
Yeah, thank you so much. I would definitely recommend American Atheist personally. Again, I'm biased.
Nope.
Yeah,
I'm totally. I'm sorry. I'm watching the show and there's a bit of a delay. Yeah, I'll definitely go on and add American Atheist to the list. A few bucks here, a few bucks there can go a long way. So.
And
it absolutely can. And full disclosure, I'm on the board of directors for American Atheist, which is why I'm not asking you for money for American Atheist. And also, I didn't know enough about people for American Way. I mean, I knew about them, but I couldn't say enough to vouch because I don't know that I've donated to them in years, but it may be great stuff. So I'm glad Owen was here and other people with experience to talk about those.
Look into it, but they're not a scam. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know about People for the American Way until I got a solicitation letter, and then I looked it up and I was like, all right, well, it seems like like a good charity, but you've got
Jerry Falwell hated them, like just vile hate. If that tells you anything, yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. All right, guys. I've taken up enough of your time. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Hey,
I said it was going to be the last call, and then we got more calls.
Okay.
I'm going to keep going.
Okay.
So Tony's calling from Virginia. Tony pronouns are he, him. Tony's a deconstructing theist, wants to discuss finding purpose outside of religion. So this is kind of a repeat of the call that we had earlier today. And once again, I will recommend, Tony, that you go to the website, theatheistbook.com, where there's a book and a documentary, but we're happy to address the question outside of that as well. So what's going on?
I appreciate that. I thought it was amusing that the last caller on this topic was also named Tony.
Right.
Yeah.
Her thoughts very much echoed my own. I'm not a former Jehovah's Witness. I am, I would say, deconstructing theists. I've worked in ministry in Christianity as a youth pastor. I've studied, religion at length. It's been my entire life. I haven't been actively practicing for the last several years, but I've listened to a lot of the programs within Atheist YouTube, and Owen, I've been a big fan of your stuff for a while, and Matt, I've had utmost respect for your no-nonsense approach and take all comers kind of attitude towards it. And I think the thing, I'm in this place where I can't let go of the notion that there should be some meaning, some purpose, something behind all of this. And I fully accept scientific discoveries and belief. I definitely believe that, the Big Bang and evolution and all the things that science, discovers. I don't question any of that. I just wonder if we're not discovering sort of the code behind it all. And maybe there is some reason behind our being here. And I'm just kind of, I want there to be a purpose. I know that it's a one thing. It's not necessarily that I look around and necessarily see evidence for it. But I've been on this fence for a while, and that's just kind of where I'm at. And a part of it is wanting there to be purpose. Part of it is feeling that I'm still looking for my purpose. I'm 40 years old, and I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, and that kind of thing. And any thoughts that you guys might have to kind of help me wrestle with this idea would be much appreciated.
Yeah, I guess I can talk about it. I don't think I wrestle with having a purpose personally. I think I more wrestle with the fact that it comes to an end at some point, and that's it. And I have found that a lot of the time when people talk about it, they feel like there should be something on the other side, I guess. But I personally just make my own purpose. Like I have all kinds of purposes. My purpose is to make sure that my kid is more prosperous than I was or that I am. I'm not sure I fully understand the need to create an independent purpose, but either way, the fact is religion gives us false purpose. It gives us false hope, false things that we can't, it doesn't really contribute to our lives in any way. So it's almost like we're being freed from, as Matt said, having another purpose imposed upon us that doesn't do anything for us in the first place. So now we can fill it with whatever purpose we want there to be. You say you don't know what you want to be when you grow up.
Yeah, if I may interject, maybe purpose is the wrong word, but I guess meaning. The answer to why we're here in the first place, not necessarily my purpose, my life as an individual, but like
why would it be more comforting? Why would it be more comforting if the why you were here was some externally? Why is that better? Why is it a problem to say we're here without any reason, without any guidance, without any instruction, that we are the product of a natural world, and that's the only reason? What's wrong with that?
Well, I think some of it comes back to what Owen was saying about that notion of that eventually this does end. That there will come a point when there's the heat death of the universe and whatever, and eventually anything that has ever existed will sort of fizzle out and be forgotten and so forth. And
okay,
I guess as big and cosmic and important.
Does that make life not worth living? Like, I'm going to have to eat. I'm going to eat here in a little while, and I'm going to have to eat again tomorrow. Does that mean today's meal was wasted?
That's the cornerstone of the question that of what I'm trying to answer is if there ultimately is no meaning.
And I don't even understand because I just don't get this, because I just asked a question where the obvious answer to anyone and everyone that's ever existed should be no. So does the fact that I have to eat again tomorrow mean today's meal was wasted? I would think the answer is an instant obvious no. Why not? Why isn't that the instant obvious answer?
I mean, you enjoy the metaphor is a little simplistic on some level.
I'm sorry. Did I just repeat something and ask you for clarification, and you decided to say that my metaphor was a little simplistic?
I mean, that's you said it's an obvious no, and I think to compare, yes, the answer to your question is no, that it doesn't make today's meal wasted, but I think comparing a single meal to the entire
So I asked a question where the obvious answer was no. You acted as if it was absurd to ask. I clarified it. Then you decided to suggest that the problem was that it was a simplistic metaphor, and now you've actually answered the question. So, if in fact today's meal wasn't wasted, does the fact that life is eventually going to end mean that the life you spent was wasted?
I don't have a good answer to that question.
So my simplistic metaphor that was designed to get you to recognize that the obvious answer should apply to that as well, all of a sudden that's a problem. Is that because my metaphor is too simple, or because you don't have an answer?
I mean, it could be both, if I'm being honest. I'm not trying to invoke your ire. I understand your frustration in these things, and I'm not trying to be one of those difficult callers. I fail to see the direct correlation between comparing one meal one day to the next.
Tony, why aren't you dead?
I've almost eaten a bullet many times in my life, so that's
why haven't you?
I'm too cowardly. Because I'm too cowardly to pull the trigger.
So
there have been times I've downed half a bottle of tequila and woken up on...
Listen, stop talking and listen. We're now in a very, very difficult area. And I don't need ire. I don't need slapbacks. This is a non-joking subject. There are many
100%.
people. There are many people who deal with thoughts of self-harm and self-termination. You have just expressed that you have been there before. I have not in the sense that you might be describing, but I know other people who have. None of us here are qualified to counsel on this, but for whatever reason you found, would you acknowledge that there are other reasons that don't have anything to do with a perception of oneself as cowardice, that in fact there may be people would you think there are people who are choosing to live for perfectly acceptable reasons, like seeing the good?
Yeah, that's valid.
Is that, for those people who do manage to see the good, is that impossible for you or for others who have difficulty seeing the good or may have never seen the good? Is it still possible for you to see that as well, so that you have a reason other than a perceived cowardice to continue to persist?
That's the part that I'm having difficulty making the leap with, is finding the meaning, the purpose, the reason to go on, without there being some purpose behind it all. I mean, I want to believe that I can have a positive impact, but even though, there eventually will come a point that impact is finite.
Like, what do you enjoy doing? Doing just every day? Like, do you have a thing that you do? Like, I play video games sometimes. Do you ever do anything like that?
I do. There are a lot of things that I enjoy.
Well, give me a couple. Just give me two things you do.
Video games is one, and I like shooting pool.
Okay.
We're twins.
Here's my experience with it. Yeah, it's going to come to an end. And unfortunately, there isn't something on the other side. I don't know that the Christian interpretation of what's on the other side is ideal, but either way, I can shoot pool for an hour today, and tomorrow I can shoot pool again, and the day after that I can shoot pool again. That's been my driving force. I get to enjoy things on from one day to the next, and one day I'm not going to be able to enjoy those things anymore, and that gives me all the more reason to enjoy them now. I enjoy the hell out of eating a ham sandwich. It's like borderline sinful how much I enjoy eating a ham sandwich. So I'm going to eat those things until the day I die, and I'm going to enjoy every second of it. That doesn't mean, anything else that I have or haven't done has no meaning. I mean, we're imposing our own meaning on it, and it seems like the real problem is that we're not going to be able to continue doing it in the future, but we might as well enjoy it now. And as I've always put it, and I'm sorry, this may make things worse, I've always said, when I die, the universe ends. So my goal is to make other people's universes as good as possible for the time that their universes exist, and enjoy my universe as much as I can. That's it. That's what we've got. I mean, we don't have anything else, right?
I mean, I try to live by the idea of making, try to leave the world better than it was when you got here.
Yeah. Make other people's universes a little bit better. Make sure that others have, as much time as they can hanging out with their kid or with the, playing pool or whatever it is they like to do. That is the thing that gives me a motivation to get up in the morning. If I have something extra to give, then I give it to make sure others enjoy their lives too, And I've never actually dealt with what you're dealing with either, just like Matt hasn't. I've come to find that a lot of the time it comes down to and like an actual imbalance, an inability to enjoy things. So I don't know, it may be helpful for you to actually talk to somebody about it that's actually qualified, because I don't want you to be living like unhappy. I don't want you, like, I do enjoy life myself, and I have up times and I have down times like everybody. But overall it's good. I want you to have an overall good experience too. I want everybody to. I want to make everybody's universe as good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't. For the people who are finding it difficult, I mean, first of all, I'm always going to recommend the Secular Therapy Project. So it's seculartherapy.org, and then you can find counselors that are science-based and not going to point you towards religion or spiritual, supernatural stuff, and deal with the problems as best you can. There may not be any sort of easy solution to the problem of hard solipsism, the problem of hard nihilism, of if you're one of the people who are incapable seemingly of finding the value or worth to continue. What I will say is I would think that what you may be labeling cowardice may in fact not be cowardice, but may be a recognition that there's likely meaning and likely value beyond your immediate ability to perceive, and that persisting is the way you have a chance of finding out what values and what meaning is you're just on the edge of discovering. And as long as that remains a hope, and hope with an empathetic foundation and a rational foundation is one of the best things we can offer. There's a reason why I'm more hopeful now than I was a year ago, despite the fact that some things are dramatically worse and could get incredibly well. We could be heading for civil war. That is not outside the realm of possibility. And yet I am cautiously optimistic, because while recognizing that that is a real possibility now, and recognizing that we may be completely screwed on a number of fronts, I'm at least optimistic that I have a better understanding, or a more accurate understanding, of what direction things are likely to go. And we now have a better understanding of who is more likely to help make the world better versus not.
And you know what? If things continue to get worse, fuck it. There's nothing you can do to change certain things. So enjoy your life while you've got it, and try to make everybody else's lives better along the way. I tried to do that on a grand scale through, voting, lobbying, politicians and things. But if I can't do that, if that line is cut off for me, I do it on a local level. Just the people in my direct vicinity, try to make their lives better, so that their universe is.
I didn't peg you for a cynic, Owen, but that definitely resonates with me. I like that idea.
It's hard not to be.
Let go of the things you can't control.
Yeah, let go. Enjoy it. Enjoy what you got while you're here. Enjoy playing pool. Enjoy that ham sandwich.
Yeah.
Enjoy whatever,
And Matt, something that you were saying, I don't know if you enjoyed the show Game of Thrones, but there's a line that Tyrion has during the show, and he says, death is so final, but life is full of possibility. And I think that rather succinctly kind of sums up what you were saying there about the possibility and hope for the future and what have you. But I don't know. Again, I think part of it comes back to wanting there to be something behind it all, and if there isn't, then so be it. But I enjoy discussing philosophy and ideas about existence and so forth.
Well,
I don't think our reason for being here is to give hand jobs to some cosmic deity in the clouds. I think that's pointless. But I think maybe to prepare ourselves for something bigger beyond this level of existence, maybe there is a next step. I don't know.
Or maybe we've just done such a terrible job at shepherding this particular existence that you'd prefer that this was a place to wipe your feet before the next existence.
You know what makes me really sad is knowing that my mom is like 70 and has wasted all 70 years of her life not talking to her kids or enjoying herself. it's so like important to enjoy what we've got now. And you know what? If there's something afterward, I can't prove it. I can't prove it false or true or whatever. So maybe. But while I'm here, I'm going to enjoy it and make everybody else's universes better, because that's my moral starting point. Increasing happiness to the maximum amount that is within my control, you know?
Yeah, I to kind of give an example of the opposite side of this. Somebody very close to me, their mother was diagnosed with cancer recently, and she's very religious. And because her life is kind of stagnant right now, she's opting to not do chemo and treatment because she figures if she gets to the grave sooner, she'll be better off. And her family is really struggling with that. And I think that's kind of the toxic side of belief and faith and whatever. And I definitely, don't advocate. And for the record, I have a counselor, I have a therapist. I have dealt with these, depression, anxiety issues all my life. I'm medicated and receiving treatment and so forth. And 1,000% anybody, if anything I've had to say resonates with you, please seek counseling, therapy, talk to somebody.
Right.
I'm very glad that I haven't been able to go that route, because there's some things that I would have missed out on. But still, in those moments, it's so, it's very, I don't know how to describe it. I think there was a study some time ago that said that the suicidal ideations can take hold in as little as 11 seconds. That's all the time it takes from ideation to action in some cases. And if you've never felt that, then I envy you.
I have not. I have not. And that is the thing that tells me that there is something more than just like it's in, I don't know. It's like, for example, I've never struggled with with eating too much, but I know that it's one of the hardest things that people can deal with. And that tells me that there's something like different about me, how I think, how I'm built, or something's different. And I want, in an effort to kind of improve the world and make everyone's universe as good as possible, I want to try to help them figure out how to not be in that position,
Mm-hmm. And I can recognize intellectually that on a certain level, it's chemicals in my brain. It's some aspect of my brain that is not functioning the way that it should for a being that is designed to have survival instinct. Designed is the wrong term, but you know what I mean. To have a survival instinct. But I can recognize that on an intellectual level, but it still doesn't make it any less poignant, any less intense.
Yep.
You got to find the stuff that works for you. And I get it. I'm not trying to be glib or dismissive of it at all. Just haven't had the same experience, haven't had to deal with it, don't know what works for others, don't know what works for you. Glad you're seeing, an expert. So,
and make everyone's lives around you as good as you can. That's my advice.
Well, I appreciate both of your words, and Matt, I apologize if I got up your nose a little bit there. I didn't intend to. I was trying to be genuine in my approach. But I'm still out here. I'm not going to go out on the limb to say that I believe that there is a God, so to speak, but that there may be some force behind the universe in existence. I'm going to keep looking for one, and if I never find it, I don't know that I will necessarily mean a life wasted, but
keep going.
I want there to be
don't
something.
worry.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. I'm only seeking clarity. We got there.
If I find that answer, though, I'll give you a call and let you know. Okay.
Definitely. But on that note, Tony, we got to go. Thanks so much. All right. Final call for today. I know I've said that, 33 times, but David in Italy is going to thinks that he can convince us that there's already potential scientific or logical arguments that there can be an afterlife under a materialistic world of the universe, not God and afterlife. David,
Yes.
is my afterlife something I experience in your model?
Yes, because I think that the experience of death must, yes, the experience of death
So
must be
you're
equal
going
to
to defend the notion of an afterlife for me that I experience. Go ahead.
Yes, yes. I think that the experience of death must be equal to the experience before our birth. The reason being that I cannot make any logical argument why, under a materialistic view of the universe, my experience of inexistence after my life is any different than the experience of inexistence that I had before my life. Because
I'm not understanding a single thing. I'm not understanding a single thing you're saying.
I'm having a hard time. Yeah, might be a language barrier.
I said, yes, I said that I think that the experience of death must be equal to the experience before our birth. The reason being that I cannot make any logical argument.
David, no. Are you saying that the afterlife experience is equal to the experience before our birth?
No, the experience of death when we die and there is nothing, when we are not alive, but the experience of not being alive must be equal to the experience we had before when we didn't exist yet.
Saying,
because I cannot make any logical. Yes.
Yeah, I think he's saying like it's being dead after our life is over is the same as before our life began. It's just.
No, that's what I asked, and he said no.
Yes.
Is that's it? Okay.
No. Yes.
David, then I didn't experience being alive. I didn't experience anything before I was born, did I?
Yes, but is
no, David.
No, because
no, David. Before I was born, did I experience anything?
No.
So I said we wanted to talk about. I said we specifically wanted to talk about an afterlife model where I would experience my afterlife. And if you say that my afterlife is equal to my experience before my life, then that's not an experience that I had.
Okay, so basically the lack, because being not alive, so basically my model said that there are three possible ways that afterlife can come to exist. One, if, for example, the universe is cyclical, and in that case, I cannot make an argument where it cannot be possible, but you, in a sort of way, can reincarnate in a sense that another universe comes into existence. Of course, you will not have any memories.
Stop. David, stop. You said you were going to present an argument that there's already sufficient scientific evidence for an afterlife. You don't get to talk about possible reincarnation. You need stop fucking interrupting me or you'll never speak another word. You don't need to talk about possible reincarnation. You need to demonstrate what an afterlife is and how you know it's real.
Okay, so first of all, my statement it is not a pretentious statement, but I said, but I 100% know. I think that is possible for the reason that.
David. David, I'm
no,
done.
Wait.
No, you don't tell me to wait. I'm done. I know I'm done because there's a bit of a language barrier. It's incredibly difficult to understand what you're saying. And I'm not going to rehash things 10 times because you just went to talk about absolute certainty when I never mentioned absolute certainty, and absolute certainty wasn't relevant. So you've added a completely irrelevant topic in order to avoid dealing with the topic at hand. I have no more patience to deal with that today. I'm sorry, David. Send an email, write it down. Okay. Let's figure it out. No, don't say, why are you fucking interrupting me? Never mind. I don't fucking care. All right. On that note, hey Owen, how you doing?
Doing well. It's been an interesting one.
If you're going to call in at some point, nobody's going to call in now because we've actually shut down for the show for today. There's going to be another episode of the show here in, 2.5 hours? Yep, 7:00. This was the final call of this show. I appreciate the fact that your English was better than my Italian, but that doesn't mean it's going to make for a good show, and it doesn't make it's going to be good for any kind of understanding. There's a limit to how many times I think we should retread trying to understand baseline arguments in front of the audience before we just move on. What you could do is you could type up something. Here's an English version of your syllogism and send it and say, here's what I'm arguing for. Because for me, partially, it felt like you were basically going to argue that either the universe is cyclical, in which case you really live stuff, which we could then view as reincarnation. No, none of that model has me experiencing that afterlife. Me is an identity that is specifically a product of this package of atoms in this particular configuration with these particular energies. And the definition of me, like the ship of Theseus, changes each time one of those things changes. It's constantly changing. It is the continuity of experience that makes me me. And so you could argue, do you experience things when you're asleep? Well, we can make a record of that, and we can show that this body is experiencing things even if I'm not consciously aware of it. But at some point, death occurs, and it appears that consciousness ends. There is no good evidence that any sort of consciousness can persist beyond death to continue existing and experiencing anything. And so if you're arguing for an afterlife where I stop experiencing, then that's not my afterlife. It's indistinguishable from somebody else's memory of me. There's not a me identity there within it as an experiencing agent. And so those models I don't care about. It's like, maybe everything will repeat and you'll just repeat it. That's not an afterlife either. When I've watched the Buffy the Vampire Slayer once more with feeling, I've watched it a dozen times. Those people they're not reliving their life. The fact that I'm watching it, they are not a part of the rewatch. Similarly, reincarnation and those things. But there may be evidence that you remember your past lives. Really? Because so far that evidence is incredibly weak about anything remotely coming close to a consciousness persisting across that. But if that's where you're going with the arguments, then I don't know that it does us any good. But if you think that there's an actual argument that me, Matt, my consciousness will survive my death and then experience something elsewhere, I would be keenly interested to know about that. It'd be a good thing to know, because maybe there's something to be terrified of. Maybe there's something to be optimistic about. Maybe if it's a good sort of afterlife, then some of the people who are struggling with this life might have good reason, if we had reason to think it was true and not just that it was convenient or comforting. I don't know. Owen, what's on your? I'm playing a lot of PoE 2 this week and doing a lot of snake stuff this week. What's on your schedule?
Moving. I'm moving out of New York City. So,
New York City?
Yeah, I live here right now. I'm moving to Pennsylvania, near Philadelphia. I live in Manhattan right now, but it's so expensive to live here, A, and B, I don't want to be in a concentrated population center for the next 4 years.
I hear you.
So, I mean, as it is, like before Trump got elected, it's probably stupid, but every time I hear a weird airplane, I'm like looking out, like, is North Korea like pissed off at us, So that's been amplified dramatically. I'd rather just not have to deal with it.
I hear you. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap up here. A huge thank you to everybody who called in today. I know that it's there's some kind of sporting event getting ready to start in a while, and so we've lost some callers. When you get bored with the game at the 7 o'clock time, Forrest will be here, and there'll be people here ready to take calls, call screeners, and everybody else. So it's going to be awesome because Forrest is with Durante Lamar, who has now agreed to much more regularly join the line, along with Owen and all of our friends here who are helping out. Huge thank you to everybody who tuned in, who watched the show today. If you like and subscribe, don't forget to go to linemerch.com, and you can go to patreon.com/calltheline for more information about the show and all the other shows that are here. In the meantime, I don't know, we'll see you in a few hours. There's a list of patron producers like Stephen, Kathleen and Galaxy and Airplane and Mark Morgan and Grant and Em and Brian and Val and Kelly and Trent and Susan, Bethany, Aaron, Larry, Worthless and Captain and Tess and Ryan and John and Panda, Thomas and Ian, Bethany and Jenny and Sparky and Stephanie and Jeff and Paul and Causey. Cool Green Daddy Sweets.